Hey guys, so this video started off as a simple topic of discussion that evolved into a more complicated topic of discussion, so I've just decided to split it up into a couple of different videos. Also, this is like my third time filming this. Don't ask me why. Anyway, do I consider myself to be more of a retro gamer or a modern gamer? Now, to be honest with you, I don't really care. I just want to enjoy games. Like, I've never been one to side with a specific console. Like, as long as the game is fun, I don't really care. I mean, it could be on the CDI for all I give a shit, as long as the game is fun. Now, I guess I should first ask, what is retro and what is modern? Now, for me, when I'm talking about retro games, I'm more so talking about like the 8-bit, 16-bit era. The 32-bit, like the Sega Saturn, the N64, that was a weird time for me when it comes to gaming, and I actually feel like I want to do another video talking about that. I've been meaning to for years. But it was a weird time, and even now, a lot of those games are hard to go back to. But a lot of 8-bit and 16-bit games are still, to this day, fun to go back and play. Now, if you've been subscribed to this channel for a while, you might be wondering, actually, does this guy even like games? I mean, I watched those unboxing videos. It didn't seem like he liked any of those games, and that's fair. I'll be honest, today and even back in the day, I've always been kind of picky when it comes to games. Like, I've never been big into fighting games unless it's like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Strategy games or turn-based style RPGs, I just don't have the attention span for those kind of games. Beat 'em ups, my favorite all-time game just happens to be Streets of Rage 2, but unfortunately that game set the bar too high, so a lot of beat 'em ups I'm just like, it's not Streets of Rage 2. Racing games are kind of a hit or miss for me. If it's an arcade racer, I might enjoy it, but any sort of simulation racer, I could care less about. But platformers, that's always been like my go-to genre, especially of retro games. Give me Sonic, Mario, Mega Man, Castlevania, you know. The list goes on. I could play those games till the day I die. Now, when it comes to modern games, I feel like there's an overabundance of first-person shooters. It's not to say I haven't enjoyed some first-person shooters. I just don't care about like Call of Duty, and I feel like there's got to be something else to the game for me to enjoy it. Yeah, I've played Borderlands a little bit. There was a game called Singularity I really liked, but overall, like I don't know. I don't really care that much. I will say this, I'm very happy that there's a resurgence of what people call boomer shooters coming out. If you don't know what a boomer shooter is, it's basically like classic Doom or like Duke Nukem 3D or Quake. I don't know what it is about those retro, Wolfenstein, all that kind of stuff. Like those retro first-person shooters, I still love those. I have a soft spot for those. I don't know what it is. I'll play those games any day of the week before I play Call of Duty. Of course, there's a ton of other genres, but then you have like open world games, which for me, man, I have to be in the right mood to play an open world game. But when I am in the mood for an open world game, my God, I will get sucked in and sucked in hard. That's it. Now, going back to retro games, what are some of the things that I love about retro games? Well, for one, the pick up and play aspect of it. A lot of these games, you don't need a long-ass tutorial level 4 or anything like that. Most of the time, you can kind of figure it out on your own. I mean, of course, I love platformers, so if you can learn to run and jump, well, you've got the game figured out. Plus, I also don't feel like there's a commitment to these games, at least not to me. Like a lot of the retro games, I don't sit down and necessarily think I have to beat this game, especially in one sitting. That's just not going to happen. I don't have the time for that. But I don't really care if I only get to level 4. Like, it's just something to pass the time, if that makes sense. Obviously, replayability is a big part of it. I mean, a lot of us are still playing these games after all these years. And I don't think that's necessarily just a nostalgic thing. It's just a lot of them are still fun to jump into and play, even if it's only for 10, 15 minutes. And that's great. But what about modern games? I mean, storytelling has come so far. We're so far removed from like the PS1 era poor dialogue and voice acting, which is, it's fun to go back and play, but God, it was awful, right? But now you got like really good actors who are doing like motion capture and everything. So not only are you getting the voice, you're getting the movement of the character and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, while I love the storytelling aspect of it, it kind of creates a problem where I don't really have an interest to play these games once I've beat them. So I don't always feel like I get my money's worth when it comes to modern games. And then we can talk about the multiplayer, because that's where a lot of the replayability comes into play, right? I don't want to fucking play online multiplayer. I don't play these games enough to master them. So, having me play against a bunch of fucking 10, 12-year-olds that do nothing but sit in their mom's basement playing fucking Fortnite and all this kind of crap, never do I get the opportunity to ever get good, as they say. And I'd also, I'm not interested in being teabagged by some fucking immature 12-year-old talking about how he fucked my mom last night. Like, it's not fun. Then there's people who cheat. For the love of God. I mean, it just ruins everybody's good time. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to play a game and have fun, not get teabagged. Now, of course, graphics are a no-brainer, but I don't necessarily consider good graphics to equal a fun game. But the immersion, like, we've come so far. And, primary example is Assassin's Creed Origins. I've never been interested in Assassin's Creed, but when I found out they were doing like ancient Egypt, I've always been fascinated by ancient Egypt. I just walked around. That's all I did. And I loved it. So, couldn't really get that from classic games. At the same time, though, the thing about retro games is I feel like we still needed to use our imagination a little bit to kind of see the world maybe as, the developers envisioned it. And I think in a way, it's also like reading a book. Like you visualize what you're reading in your own head. I kind of did that too with retro games. Like I wasn't seeing exactly what was on screen. Like I was seeing it in like modern graphics. Am I the only one? And of course, we already mentioned open world games, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption. Like it's pretty insane how alive these worlds feel. And I'm pretty interested to see what GTA 6 is going to deliver. But I do want to mention, the first time I played Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I didn't play much of this game, but it did fascinate me, just how alive that game felt. But I remember, in the middle of a cutscene, the horse behind me just took a dump. Okay? I bring this up. I have a pretty elementary understanding of software development. However, I have worked with software engineers, and I know how like morning meetings take place. And it cracks me up to think that on a given day, someone came into work and at a meeting we're told, your job today is to make that horse poop. I'm sorry, that makes me laugh. Now, as far as retro games go, there's not really a ton of cons that I can think of, or at least none that I care about. But when it comes to modern games, this is more of a problem with me, not necessarily modern gaming, but because a lot of games are so story driven, I feel like I need to commit to these games. When it comes to modern games, there's just not many games that I can think of that I'm like, what, I got 30 or 40 minutes to spare, I'm gonna pop this game in. I mean, hell, sometimes the tutorial level is 30 or 40 minutes, which is a necessary evil because controls have gotten more complicated over the years. And I wanna make it clear, it's not that I can't play complicated controls. Matter of fact, it's funny because there's games on the original Xbox that I've picked up that I haven't played for like 2 decades, and I remember how to play them. But that's because back then I played them for like 6-7 hours a day. The problem is nowadays, I don't have that kind of time. I might have 1 to 2 hours a night to devote to a game. And then there's times where I may not even pick that game up for like 2 or 3 days. So not only do I feel like I have to commit to this game, I also feel like I can't play any other game until I beat this game because I don't want to confuse myself. I've done that where like games have similar controls, but just slightly different here and there, and it just makes for an overall bad experience. Again, that's a me problem, not necessarily a modern games problem. But with that being said, I also suck at like 3D combat because, again, I don't have enough time to really devote to getting good at these games. And again, we go back to the replayability aspect. Like, a lot of these games, I may enjoy the story, had a great time with it, but once I beat it, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with that game again, and I'm not fucking playing multiplayer. I'm just not doing it. With that being said, I do try to keep up with the times, but the problem is I feel like it's getting harder and harder for me to find games that I want to play. even right now, there's not really a ton of games I'm even looking forward to, which is sad. But also for me, I think the other issue is the oversaturation of available games. And that's not me saying like, oh, look at my collection. It's not that. It's stuff like Game Pass and PlayStation Network. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish I had these services as a kid. But that's the thing. When we were kids, we had 5 to 10 games at our disposal. And if you didn't like a game, you found something to like about that game because that was a Christmas or birthday gift that you're stuck with. Now, that brings me to a side note, and I promise there's a point to this, but for Christmas, I bought the wife a CD player / cassette player because I do have some cassettes from when I was a kid, but also I have like all of my CDs from like the early 2000s, like the late 90s, early 2000s. And the first night we plugged it in to test it out, I popped in a CD and it took me back to a time when I remember that, yeah, while all of this music is available on YouTube Music or Spotify, whatever the case may be, it took me back to a time when I remembered getting a CD for your birthday or Christmas was awesome because that was the only way you could listen to it. Things were a lot more restricted back then. And also you felt kind of special. Like you'd go to school and be like, hey guys, I got the new Korn album. Oh, hell yeah, can we come over and listen to it? Because that was the only way you could. And that used to be the same with video games. If you owned a video game, that was the only way you could play it. So even today, you know, while I do collect things, if there's a game I've played on Game Pass and I'm like, I really like this game, and I see it used, you know, out in the wild, and I buy it, it still doesn't feel the same way. Like, I don't feel like I own something special, you know, which, let's be honest, according to some game development companies, that's just how it is. You don't own these games. With that being said, I also think it's great that indie developers can get their games out there because honestly, there's some indie developed games that I think are better than some of the big name companies. But at the same time, I also feel like there's a bunch of indie developed games that feel kind of like college projects that weren't meant for the rest of the world to see. So it's kind of, you have to sift through that to find the good. With all that out of the way, do I consider myself to be more of a retro gamer or a modern gamer? I honestly don't care. I just want the game to be fun. And that's kind of what led me to do this video because I just feel like as time goes on, finding games that I really enjoy are getting fewer and far between. And I can't tell if it's just because I'm getting old. Maybe I've seen everything. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you're having a hard time keeping up with modern games. Or hell, when did you stop? Because I feel like there's some of you who are like, I peaked in 1996. I know who you are. Thanks again for watching, guys. You know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you again